Hello, friends. So the third paper that I'm talking here is training methods cognitive. Now, if you just try to look into paper number one and paper number two, here you cannot talk anything in isolation. Say, for example, if somebody is saying that paper number one has been learned and paper number two has been learned, but I don't know anything about paper number three and paper number four. You just observe here that everything is linked. Why? Because in paper number two, we said that identify the objective, try to do the need identification, and then design the training. Now, when you are saying design the training, there comes in picture the training methods. And that is why training methods are very, very important. So basically, there are two types of training method. One is a cognitive, the other is the experiential. Here, this paper three is talking about training methods cognitive. Now, what does it mean? The cognitive here means it is trying to give you an idea about number one, matching the training methods and the outcome. That is, we've seen that you have to establish the objective. I mean, you have to identify the objective. And then accordingly, we are designing. Now, when you have designed, and you have provided the training, if you have not reached to a particular outcome, then it would be useless. And so what is important is you should match the training method with the outcome. That is, for example, if I want to teach tele, and if I'm teaching tele through the lecture method, would it suffice the purpose? The answer may be no. If I want to teach something on the machine or machine learning or something for which you need to understand about the machine, you need to understand about the system, okay, you need to understand about the process, and for that, if I'm going for a lecture method, is it advisable? The answer is no. So the point here is what you should try to do is you should try to match or identify the training method with the outcome. So, what are different methods here? Number one is a lecture method. Now, what is lecture method? That all of us is knowing, right? So, the instructor is going on and on talking about the terms and expecting that everyone understands, in the way that is communicated. No doubt it has its own pros and cons, but importantly, what you should understand as a trainer is there should not be a method which is you know identical and which is important in all the arena. What is needed is a mixed method approach, but how to mix that training methods, and for that knowledge of the training method is important. So here this paper is talking about the cognitive methods of the training, which includes the lecture method. Second is a demonstration method. You're trying to demonstrate, you're trying to give them a real experience by demonstrating with examples, with the situations and the circumstances. Then there is a electronic training methods, that is ET and its component. So depending upon the type of the training, you can think over ET components. Then there is a business games and simulations. Nowadays, business games are used very widely, and the simulation, as we know, what organizations are trying to do is they're trying to create an environment. They're trying to create a situation, and in that situation, how the supervisors or how the employees are play and how they can anticipate or forecast about things. Say, for example, you want to give a scenario to the people whereby you want to judge them the working capital requirements of a business, right? So somewhere when there is a training on the finance for non-finance executives, for example, and in that you want to explain them working capital requirements of a business, then in that case many times you can use the simulations. So what happens is simulation here means creating a structure whereby, say for example, you have current assets, you have current liabilities. If you deduct current assets, current liabilities from the current assets, you will get a working capital. So if you change one figure, the whole structure of the working capital and the requirements of the working capital would change. So what happens is simulation is creating a structure, creating a hypothetical example with an assumptions. And if you change one figure in that Excel given sheet, it may happen that it would give a prediction about what may happen. Many times in the businesses when there is unanticipated outcomes that is come, say for example COVID-19. Now this is something which is unexpected, right? So in those situations, say for example, if the market is boom, what would happen to the product? If the market is stable, say for example, if the lockdown is more than 21 days, what would happen in future? So like that, for anticipating, for forecasting the future, this simulation is adopted. Now, let's say an example of the soft skill. Now, in the soft skill training, if you go for simulation, would it work? The point is, simulation may not work in those type of situations. And in fact, it has to be work, then you have to design it well. So the point here is, which method would you use out of the cognitive method? Would you go for lecture method? Would you go for demonstration method? Would you go for electronic training? Would you go for business games, which can give a better feel, which can give a live experience, or you go for a simulation? Other can be program instruction and interactive multimedia type of training, or it can be case study method, which is widely used by many institutions nowadays. But case study method in the training would be successful only when the employees or only when the participants know about the case. So in that situation, either you are giving it in advance, or what you are doing is you are making them to understand the case within the class itself. So when you are giving it within the class, then what should be the length of the case? Um, how would you start? How much time you would give them to learn? How much time would you give for the introduction? How much time you would give to what type of questions that you may like to ask, and what type of end you may like to take ahead? That means, if you're going for a case study method, it may happen that preparing a case itself and preparing for the outline of that class where you are going to use the case study method itself is again a very tedious task. But many a times people give a situation and then analyze something, and then some conclusion are coming that may not be correct method. So what is important is, you're going for case study method, to which class, to which categories, to which type of training would it be adaptable, and would it be advisable, that is needed to be looked into. In many times of training, you may require to go for on the job training also. So would you like to go for on the job training? If yes, in what type of situations, that you need to analyze. So what is important is identify the right method of the training according to the requirement of the training. That is very, very important. So here, if you want to know about the fundamentals of each of the method and the pros and cons of each of the method, no doubt practically, when you are interested in this field, somewhere or the other way you are engaged, or you must be engaged in this type of activities, you must be knowing the pros and cons, but still theoretically and conceptually you need to look into. And for this, again, this book, Dr. Janki Ram and Mr. Agochia, chapter number 6 of both the books, that are giving you idea about all the cognitive methods of the training. So by now, it is very, very clear that paper number 1 is talking about the strategy from the point of view of the business. Paper number 2 is talking about the design, instructional design. Paper number 3 is talking about the methods of the training that you should select out of the cognitive method. And now in the next video, we will try to discuss about the paper number 4, that is training method experiential. Thank you.